my main focus wasn't Zionism, but it's crucial to my work. So I did a 2-year international project on it, but with a big focus on South Africa. There are different, I didn't even know what Zionism is a few years ago, but Christian Zionism, I prefer to speak about Zionism amongst Christians because there are various kinds of Zionism. One brand of Zionism is end times theology, whereby Christians believe that all Jews must return to Israel, and they confuse the biblical Israel, people Israel, with the state Israel. So they think modern Jews must return to the state Israel because God has a special plan with them. And therefore Israel is good and Palestinians are bad. It's a very simple understanding based on a very literal understanding and incorrect of the Bible. So that's one brand of it.
Dr. Marthie is here with us. She's a South African scholar, an activist with a profound focus on social justice. But something I discovered as well while I was talking to her before the episode, she has a profound as well focus on how to live, how to love, and how to find yourself, how to dream. Dr. Marthie, thank you so much for coming to our show. When I was doing the research, a lot of interesting for a non-English, speaker terms and vocabularies that came on your your focus on your research and all of that. We spoke about your Christian and Zionism and your media work. I wanna get to all of that, but firstly, I want to speak about your upbringing and how did it shape your life to become the person you are. I want to speak about the first 2 books that you wrote, not about the books themselves, but about the topics and your late husband as well. If you can take us through your upbringing, how did it? How was it, and your memory of that time?
Aziz, please call me Marthie. Drop the title, please, first of all. And thanks for hosting me. I was born in the late 50s, and I grew up during the height of South African apartheid in one of the most conservative areas in our country, named Littleton at the time, and later called Verwoerdburg after the late Dr. Verwoerd. Yeah. And I was a voortrekker, which means which is a youth organization, nationalist youth organization. My father was in the Broederbond, which is still exists, a circle of men at the time promoting Afrikaner nationalist objectives. And I grew up in the Dutch Reformed Church, which was implicit in apartheid. So that shaped that was my environment, and I didn't challenge anything. I also was a bit too young for my grade, and I lacked a bit of self-confidence, and I am an introvert. So it sounds terrible to say that now, but what it gave me later in life is insight in the mind of a person, me, my family, my friends, who think that they are good people with sound values, staunch Christians, living for their communities, and yet they have a superiority complex, and they discriminate and look down on others. And they lack the ability to reflect on themselves and see themselves in a bigger context. It's like an isolated identity in a bigger pool of people. So in that sense, I think it shaped me once my eyes opened.
Would you call that ignorant?
Ignorance, indoctrination, submitting to group identity, and not having the consciousness, the awareness, the guts to reflect on the personal identity within the group identity and to question one's own motivations. I mean, there were niggling things that bothered me, especially when I was at university. But there was also so much fear in me and so much, I felt incapable, and I opted out and I chose what I described at the time to be apolitical. I understand today that nothing is apolitical. That's a choice. That's a position. Silence is the position of a coward. Or someone who does not have enough guts to do what, or to even to interrogate or find or research what is really happening. You know there's something amiss, but you don't go there. Yeah. I don't think I answered your question.
From that period, how did Color of Love come to surface?
Yeah, my first book, Colors of Love. I met my husband at university. We were.
Yes, if you can tell us about that. Yeah.
And he had a profound influence on my life because he had far more freedom within himself. And he critiqued himself, and he critiqued apartheid. You know, he had courage, and he had wisdom. But he became ill when at a young age, in his early 40s, and passed away when he was 43. I was 41 at the time, and then I wrote this book about our journey with he had leukemia, and how we hoped for him to be healed. In the end, he did not. So the book is about. It's not a sad story. Of course, he dies, but it's about how do you live fully, and there again, he showed me how to do it when you are critically ill. And how do you live fully when you face death? And then when death arrives, I realized at the end of the book, at that stage when I wrote the book in the year after he passed away, that I overcame my fear for death, but at that stage, not yet my fear of life. Yeah.
You told me when we spoke about this, you told me that in the book you kind of, I don't know if that's the right term, discovered how to live if you know when you're gonna die. So how do you live if you know when you're gonna die?
As if life will continue forever. Time is a relative thing. And you really appreciate every moment and live with the awareness that there were quite a few of instances, like in the middle of the night when he would hug me, then I would be aware of it and think, I must keep this forever, ever, ever in my thoughts. And then I didn't know why I had to do it. I forgot that where we were heading, you know. So, and it is as if the veneer was pulled away from my eyes, and I could see more clearly. Water, light, air, people, warmth, gratitude, the gifts of the people around us. I could see everything more clearly. Yeah, I think it has to do with that. Yeah.
From there, after your late husband passed away, how long took you to write the other book? I think you lived quite some time alone to write the other book.
Oh, I must remember now how long it took. I don't think it took that long. Maybe 4 years, 5 years after he passed away.
Do you write it because there was like loneliness, or
no? No, not out of loneliness. No, you know, having my background, and even though I was a professional woman in the corporate world, at the time when my husband passed away, I earned a very good salary. I was headhunted. My unit won many awards for its work. I was successful. But my identity was still in service of my husband and my work. Nothing more than that. And I realized after he passed away that I have never had dreams for myself. So the second book is about being forced through his death to face my own life and stand on my own feet and asking myself, what do I want from life? Who am I? And what are my dreams? So this second book is about that journey. Yeah, I'm still living the second book, in fact.
I think through the second book, or through all of the, you did your PhD, and you did the third book, you did your trips, and the massive shift in your life that I questioned at the beginning when I read about Marthie. I was like, but why and how this person would have this mentality and face? To be honest, it's a lovely life. Why would I challenge it and make it difficult? And I get arrested, and I get detained, and so from there I was asking, how did all of this shifted in your mind to start your work on social justice regarding South Africa and internationally?
Yeah. When I had it all, the great job with a great salary, the status, the husband, the nice house, good friends, I wasn't happy. There was a part of me that was not happy. I wouldn't say unfulfilled. I'm saying not happy, not content, empty, searching. And so that is why this journey after he passed away was so crucial in my development. And I traveled. I went 3 times to Indonesia. Behind you is a batik, yes, that I bought there. This I bought in Thailand. So I traveled to, and but not on fancy trips. I went to the Amazon, to Peru, to various places. And it dawned on me, I was intrigued by the differences and the similarities between people. Let's take Indonesia. It's the biggest Muslim country in the world, but it's a matriarchal kind of Islam. I didn't know that, and I felt at my happiest. I still do. I feel at my happiest in the softness, the gentleness, the food, the music, the people in Indonesia. And I realized there on one of these journeys that, but these are the people who were abducted to my country by the Dutch when they colonized South Africa, and they were the people who, part of the people who suffered under apartheid. They were brought here as slaves. These are the people that I love. These are the people, when I was in Indonesia, from whom I learned about life, about gentleness, about giving, about humor, about jalan, walking slowly and savoring the moment, you know. So I became intrigued by sameness and otherness, and I felt the urge to know more. And those themes are also in the second book. But then one day I went with a friend, the late Professor Saint-Peter Blanche. From time to time we had coffee together. And I had a coffee date with him. And he told me about this new program that he was going to be part of at the university, the dynamics between religion and culture. And that is how people abuse and use religion to advance socio-political agendas or ecological agendas or whatever. And I thought, I need to do this. So I wanted scholarly information. I must admit, I forgot your question, and I'm just rambling on. What was the question?
I wanted to know about the shift between in that comfortable life that Marthie lived to social justice, especially when it comes to religion.
Yeah. No, I felt drawn to it. I mean, that's why I eventually did the interviews for my book 21 Voices. I wanted to know why did people do exactly that? It has to do with being drawn to it. And it sounds as if it is all about me. I don't know if it is. I really don't know if it is. But it also has to do with the sense of I cannot be happy. I cannot enjoy what I've been blessed with if I don't share it and if I don't live a wider life. I feel claustrophobic in this beautiful town where I stay, and with friends who do the one trip after the other and talk only about that and themselves and other people. I get claustrophobic. I don't know what it is that makes me different, but I feel, I see the connection between people, between countries, and I have a deep, deep urge to do whatever I can to help create a better world. And I do have skills. I have communication skills. I have strategic abilities. So I'm just trying to use these things. That's all.
But based on your work and your skills, as you mentioned, how do you think Africa's historical experience with colonialism shaped the understanding of the international conflicts and the international apartheid and colonialism, like what's happening in Palestine?
Well, many people in our country obviously have an innate, almost, instinctual reaction when they see deep discrimination, as in apartheid. I mean, it's not only South Africa that was had an apartheid regime. There was apartheid in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, with the indigenous people. It was just not called like that. But we have a very, very good understanding of it. And at the same time, so I think South Africans, we are different communities almost, and different kinds of people, in a mix of people in the same country. The sections of our society are very sensitized. Others, mainly in my circles, think they're sensitized. And I'm not saying I am sensitized, but I think we are recovering. We are recovering from what we did in the past to the biggest part of our society. But I think that we are, this is not a perfect country, but we often don't give ourselves credit for the lessons we learned. We, more so than many other societies in the world, are able to live with diversity. More so than other societies in the world, we are able to celebrate it. And when we have problems, we can sit down and talk. In other countries, like in the United States, for example, when they have differences, they withdraw. But we sit down and we talk. Yes, we may fight vehemently with words, but we do that. We face one another. So we have, although we have all these things that still slow down our momentum, we learned skills, life skills. We learned the value of having courage. We learned the fact that none of us know it all. We are continuing to learn that we need one another, and that we are stronger when we join hands, when we take hands. Those skills, I think we just don't give ourselves enough credit for. And I think that we are, we must use those skills and understand that we have insights and the ability to lead where other people fail. And that I think that we really, really need to capitalize on and acknowledge those capabilities and the strategic relevance of it in the international society. And for instance, now where South Africa is taking for a second time Israel to the International Criminal Court. Yes, we fight at home. Is it necessary? Should we do that? But we do that. And when we fight, hopefully we learn from one another, and I think we do. So our society is not smooth and homogeneous. It's vibrant, it's dynamic, we learn all the time, and we should give ourselves credit for that.
Well, I'm going to speak about Palestine now, but I want to pave the road to it. I want to ask you, your intense work was about Christianity and the understanding of Zionism in Christianity. You can correct me if I'm wrong. What does Zionism mean when it comes to Christianity?
Yes, my main focus wasn't Zionism, but it's crucial to my work. So I did a 2-year international project on it, but with a big focus on South Africa. There are different, I didn't even know what Zionism is a few years ago, but Christian Zionism, I prefer to speak about Zionism amongst Christians because there are various kinds of Zionism. One brand of Zionism is end times theology, whereby Christians believe that all Jews must return to Israel, and they confuse the biblical Israel, people Israel, with the state Israel. So they think modern Jews must return to the state Israel because God has a special plan with them. and therefore Israel is good and Palestinians are bad. It's a very simple understanding based on a very literal understanding and incorrect of the Bible. So that's one brand of it. But there are the softer, equally dangerous brands of Christian Zionism, whereby people believe in the myths, and they still have a superiority complex. And okay, so this is not only in South Africa, right? This is worldwide. Zionism amongst Christians, they think that Jews are more European-like, and they see God as a warrior and a militarist warrior, and therefore war on Palestinians are good. I'm putting it in very direct, simple terms now. And then there's a kind of Zionism whereby people say, yes, but it's, there are there's violence on both sides, and this is the kind of God that sits on the fence, doesn't take sides, doesn't recognize the asymmetry, speak conflict language. That's also a kind of Zionism, but it has nothing to do with, for instance, end times theology, or thinking that God is some kind of warrior. But it's also Zionism. It's a liberal kind of, but it's still Zionism.
What is the most followed now?
There's a mix. There's a mix of all these, and then there are Christians who don't go to church, who just simply believe by what they read in the media, and they think if they listen to CNN and BBC that those are the alternative media, and they don't do the work. And so there's a lot of people who really have good values and think that they do the right thing. All of us are very busy. I don't want to judge or blame. That's not what I'm doing. I'm explaining where I used to be also, that you have many interests and you don't interrogate, and you trust the media, or think that you consider a number of sources, but the propaganda, the diaspora is so strong that you don't connect the dots between issues, and unfortunately this is one of the biggest. We will look back onto this time and ask ourselves, what were we thinking? How could we not see? How could we not believe? Yeah,
I believe South Africa, mainly a Christian community, between the Rainbow Nation in South Africa, among white Afrikaners, did you face a lot of challenges when you start bringing these kind of ideas and challenging the community? Because you're challenging the church. How did you take it?
Yes, absolutely. I spent 3 months working in Palestine and Israel in 2011, where I monitored human rights violations on behalf of the World Council of Churches. When I came back to South Africa and I started to talk at the university and friends at my church, people were very skeptic. And also very skeptic. They told me at the university to just not be an activist. The word activist in Afrikaans, a friend asked me honestly, an intelligent person asked me, so Marthie, do you also burn tires? And flags? So it's a concept that is totally misunderstood.
Do you burn tires and flags?
So it's yes, and from 2011, 2012, in 2011, obviously I wrote emails home. I lost friends. People questioned me. I got a lot of hate mail, obviously. I was threatened. Horrible things was written about me in the media, or yeah, I didn't took it to heart. But these are the things that people who advocate for Palestinians just to have equal lives, equality and justice face. So it's nothing unusual. Obviously there was resistance. There's less now. People start to understand. Yeah.
Oh, on this note, when did Palestine come to your life?
It was in 2010, after I returned from 4 months in Berlin, where I was deeply influenced by the atrocities during the Holocaust and the difficult problematic history of Berlin. I returned home and I attended a lecture evening at the Beyers-Naudé Center for Public Theology at Stellenbosch University. And a Jewish historian, he's an Orthodox Jew, in fact, that evening said, but not all Jews support the state of Israel. And that evening, I talk more about it in my book, so I don't want to elaborate about it too much, but that evening it dawned on me that I was maintaining a second system of apartheid. And this time, after I understood what apartheid is, the damage it does, obviously and firstly, to the people who suffer under that regime, but also the damage it does to the soul and the humanity of the oppressor. And yet I was doing it again. So that's when I decided I need to understand more. That's where it crossed my path. I felt deeply ashamed. Yeah.
Many religious people from different religions, when you speak to them about, I would say, international issues, if that's the right term, Palestine specifically, they would try to say that, but around the corner from your backyard is, why would you go further?
Exactly.
And it's not like in a way of you trying to assist others, but in a way trying to take your focus from that international issue. Have you faced anything like this? And what is the right answer to something like that?
Obviously, I face that all the time. Yes. But the right answer, I cannot tell you. But what I think, what I answer is, of course, we must look at our people, take care of our people. Of course. And of course, we should have acted against Omar al-Shabir in 2015. The government should have. And of course, we should do this and that. But if we don't do those things, and we do one thing that is right, should we stop doing the thing that is right? Of course not. We should do all of these things. And the words of late President Mandela continue to inspire me. Our liberation from apartheid is not complete without the freedom of the Palestinians. So if we don't understand that we are still in a process of liberating ourselves from apartheid, because it's not dusted and done, there are many remnants of it in our country. And as we struggle with this process, why don't we see how others in the world, including the Palestinians, helped us? How can we now live only for ourselves? We are all connected. So South Africa, precisely because of its history of apartheid, precisely because we have the the experience during our struggle where Jews, Muslims, Christians, and others took hands. We should lead the way now in doing that with the Palestinians. Because it's not about a religious group, it's about values. We understand that we can transcend, cross over the boundaries, to take hands amongst religious groups, amongst people from different walks of life, and stand together, because that, in a cause that is our own, because it's the cause of someone else, but it comes back, the goodness of doing that comes back to us. It strengthens us, and it's connected to the Palestine in our backyard, where people suffer. So we learn skills. We have to take care of what's wrong in our own country and elsewhere, but we cannot drop the one. We can never. And South Africa has a special strategic responsibility in the issue of the Palestinians.
Before I go to the ICJ and eventually your book, the amazing book that you wrote, lastly, while we in Cape Town, a lot of, and it's been a year since the genocide started in Gaza, there's a lot of participation among Christian Zionists and Jewish Zionists from Cape Town, and it's not like a secret, in joining the army and participating. And there's a lot of law cases. It's been like in the court against that. How would we challenge this mentality of participating in another apartheid while you still standing on the history of an old apartheid here in South Africa, especially in Cape Town?
Well, in my understanding, it is illegal for South Africans to join the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. And the government has to take that on. So the government is not, I'm not saying here that the government is doing it all right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is right and this is wrong. But we as civil society need to make these cases known. And as you say, there are now legal cases. Yes, there's a lot of power between Christian and Jewish Zionists in the country, power and money. And they play here, as in the United States, a crucial role in influencing what happens on governmental level in different parties. Several parties, in fact, and that is part of what I think that need to be exposed in the media. Right now in the politics of the United States, the issue of Palestine played a major role in the two positions of the two candidates, and some said they're not going to vote because of the Democrats' position. So they're not going to vote. Here, not a single party issued a clear statement. It wasn't really, let me rather say this, it wasn't really part of what we asked our politicians when we had an election, was it last year or this year?
Last year.
Last year. It wasn't part of what we asked them. It was all about, what do we do here? So, and that's our responsibility. The politicians are supposed to serve us. We as a civil society should ask our politicians, what is your take on this? What is your take on that? and the money and power in that Zionism, whether Christian or Jewish Zionism, bring to politics is and to our economy, and also to the tourist industry, should be exposed in this country.
I do believe that some parties they had some statements and some stance regarding Palestine. Would I say it was enough? I mean, that's unclear for now. But going back to the 21 Voices, how did the journey start? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, I think it didn't actually. I don't know where it started, but it kind of built up or was born during my time when I monitored human rights violations, and I realized at the time that I was going to change my the topic of my doctoral research. I planned to investigate. Do something about decision-making processes on a political level in South Africa. And then I felt myself drawn to advocate, speaking out in public. That's the definition of being an activist. At my time there. And that's exactly what I did when I returned to South Africa. And I wasn't curious about why things go wrong. I mean, to me it's obvious, and we talked about it now. But why? How can things go better? Why do people stand up against injustice, and what motivates them? Now, because I felt myself as an introvert drawn into doing this, I couldn't understand it. I mean, why not just agree within oneself that the Palestinians, US Palestinians, are treated unjustly and keep it at that? Why do so publicly? That's the question. So I wanted to listen to the reasons. I wanted to interview people from Israel who take that stance, and people from South Africa, to learn from them. It was a very personal question, and obviously there was nothing published on this topic in the world. So it was a contribution, obviously, to science.
What would you say the outcome personally from the book that you got?
Well, then I interviewed 21 people. I planned to interview 20, 10 from Israel, 10 from South Africa. But then there was one person with dual citizenship, and that's why it's 21 voices. It's amazing. They did not talk only about the struggle. They talked about life. What it takes to be a mensch. How they had it wrong. Some of them had it wrong at first. They used to be Zionists. How it connects to other struggles in the world, the meta-dynamics. But what is it on their inside that brought them to advocate in public? So the one answer that I got is that it has everything to do with integrity. Not having double standards, really trying to live what you think you stand for. So I can say a lot about that. That's one reason. And I learned also that whether a person, the people whom I interviewed, whether they're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, secular, humanist, atheist, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, because there was a selection of people. These people whom I interviewed share the same value set. And each of them explain it from their own angle, but they share the same, basically universal values. And that's what made me realize how necessary it is that we take hands, that we need one another. Because not all Jews, not all Muslims, not all Christians, people think differently, but these kinds of people share the same value sets, and that's what we need to go forward in this world. But what I also found, and I mean, there are various reasons that I gave, and I connect these dots in the end in the book. But one that is now so crucial to understand is how the Palestinian struggle is not a geopolitical issue. It's not an issue between Israel and the Palestinians, and they must sort it out and all of that stuff. This is driven by global powers, and it has been funded by global powers, specifically the United States. Since 1948, it has been funded ideologically and supported ideologically and in other ways by Britain from 1897 for their own Britain's relationship, or with India at the time, colonial relationship with India at the time, to serve their own interests. So, and the propaganda, the how we are being misled by politicians, the dynamics of superiority of new colonial, new economic world orders, the idea that ordinary people don't matter, the militarism, the whole military industry complex, how governments, countries instigate wars in Africa and in other places because then they can sell weapons and that drives the economies, etc. All of that. They explain all of that. So I realized that what we have to do here is not a local struggle, but a global system. And that international law basically means nothing, because the 5 countries who have veto power to implement whatever the United Nations decide, or whatever the International Criminal Court, for that matter, decides, are the United States, France, Britain, 3 of these, and obviously Russia and China, but 3 of these countries block us, especially the United States. And then there are other countries like Germany and Italy and Spain and so on who also play a role. But this is, we are fodder. We are just being misled by the nose, taken by the nose by major corporations and governments and lobby groups. And we need to speak up, because in the end, it is about in what kind of world and do we want our children to grow up in, and it extends to the eco problem with the environment, with rich and poor, with gender struggles. It extends to so many the same dynamics to other struggles. So Palestine, the issue of Palestine offers us a lens onto much that is wrong with this world. And the people whom I interviewed say, but there is an alternative. And you know what? They don't only talk about it on a very small scale. They live it. And I think that if more of us can do that, we can make a difference.
Marty, before we start filming, we talk about like a different thing, and you mentioned that there's no two sides of stories. Generally, what the media try to present in variety of things, Palestine, one of them, that you must always listen to the other side. There's the other side, the other side. When it comes to, and I think it's important, people feel shy to bring it, but when it comes to white Christians, how do you suggest the right approach to address these matters with them regarding international justice and local justice? I mean, the values are there, but the directions are going into the wrong kind of side. What is the right way of addressing these matters with them?
Again, I don't know what the right way is, but I try to remind, when I speak to synods of various churches, I try, but especially if I speak, for instance, to the Dutch Reformed Church, I try to remind all of us how we maintained these very problematic theologies, a warrior God, a God that sits on the fence, as opposed to saying, we are not the state. We are not in a relationship with the state. We are supposed to take a prophetic position and try to learn from what Jesus taught us, and that is to see the plight of the oppressed and see the situation of the oppressed and take up that plight. That's where we need to stand and transform injustice. And that is, we need, but it's not only a Christian thing, it's to see the humanity, first of all, in those who suffer, but also not forget the humanity of the oppressor. So first we need to stop the injustice. But we are not rejecting the oppressor. We need to understand that there also is an oppressed humanity that oppress their own humanity. But we need to do it for the sake of both groups. There's not two sides. For a Christian, for anyone who subscribes, endorses the universal values of justice, equality, transparency, altruism, you cannot say that the person who rapes someone and the person who is being raped, that you should listen to both sides of the story. You should stop the rape. Yes, the person who committed the deed is a broken person, but you deal with that later. You first stop it. So to bring, say, Zionists and the oppressed right now into the same group mimics a conflict paradigm which is not true and perpetuates the injustice, because then people continue to argue, but they've always fought and they will continue to fight. And it's not the case, because Christians and Jews and Muslims lived in peace before the European Zionists arrived. Yeah. So the two sides to the story is a classic argument that I find amongst friends and family.
Yeah. Marthie, I just want to end with, this is a beautiful conversation, but what is the advice that you give to the new generation now of people who follow the social media and they have access to all these kind of information, but they still kind of live in their own bubble? And where does Marthie see herself going from now on regarding social justice and personal life? As you say in your first book, what is the dream?
Yeah, I think we need to we need to ask critical questions. So in social media and mainstream media, check out different sources. Remember that there's something like what is the word? that you are fed stuff on social media, the algorithm, that you are being fed stuff. So go to Al Jazeera, go to Mondoweiss, go to +972, which is an Israeli-based blog. Read alternative sources, ask critical questions, educate yourself, and read. Basically, read the stuff that's more than 3 sentences. And watch television, especially Al Jazeera, I must say, because they and ask, if you don't know, ask people who work in the field who has good experience. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I wrote it, because there are many excellent books on the issue of Palestine and Israel in the world, but they're not freely available in South Africa. And that's why I wrote 21 Voices. What is the dream from here? It is that we will all be, I don't want to use the word courageous, all be honest enough with ourselves to acknowledge that we have a role to play, and that there are people to whom we can reach out, and that we have to accept responsibility for our own lives and the coming generations. If one does that and one links up with people who live for more than the salary at the end of the month, one's inner being, one's entire life is so enriched by working with people from other backgrounds, from other cultures, inside South Africa and beyond. It becomes a rich life. It becomes a fulfilling life. And I'm not saying that we do this in order to become fulfilled, but it's what I'm asking for, and what I want to continue for myself, is to have people in my life, to work with people in my life that stimulate me and that push my boundaries and inspire me. Go for what inspires you. Don't go for
your normal daily life routine.
And the ugly things, the nasty things, and how we talk about one another. Surround you with what inspires you, and try to inspire others.
Yeah. Marthie, thank you so much for this these insights and the lovely conversation, and for hosting us here. Until next episode, goodbye.